focus today is to look at the responsibilities of our regulatory agencies and to also see what the boundaries are, see what the challenges are and how they have been dealt with, and see how we can move that function, the function of regulating and monitoring how we are providing services in the watch sector. As we know, the regulators are really, and they are a key part of the functioning of the entire sector. So what we are looking to do is to have the heads of the regulatory agencies be at the center of the discussions today. On that note, so the first, we're going to start with Dr. Funkeb. What does the Lagos Water Law of 2017 say about the role of the regulatory agency?
Good morning, House, and thank you very much, Mrs. Vicky Idokopo, for inviting me to be on this program. I'll just like to go straight to the question that you have asked. And that is, to put it in a better way, the mandate of the Regulatory Commission. In Lagos State, this whole idea started in 2004 with the water sector law, but the Regulatory Commission didn't take off until 2012. And by 2017, the water sector law of 2004 was repealed and replaced by the Environmental Management Protection Law. And from then on, there wasn't a separate water sector law. But the Environmental Management Protection Law, as it were, gave the Regulatory Commission the mandate to ensure that water and wastewater services are well managed in the state. When we understand that that's what the mandate says, ensuring water and wastewater services are well managed, the use of the word well managed has a lot of other things tied to it. But before you go deeply into that, you want to look at what's the goal for regulation. It's basically improved service delivery to all, ensure self-financing, and ensure sustainable service. So if you look at it from that angle, it's very easy to understand, if you choose to understand, that there must be a kind of synergy between the water supply, who is a service provider, or the wastewater management services, also a service provider, and the regulator. So a fair picture that we should ideally have that can drive this mandate is what the Lisbon Charter describes as the triangle of power. And that triangle is so very explicitly stated, where you have the regulator at the peak of the triangle, then you have the service provider at the base on the one hand, and then you have the consumer at the other hand. So if you look at that triangle, the regulator is merely a balance between the service provider and the user. I'd like to stop there for now.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Funkeb. Now,
okay,
we have, yeah.
Yes, I wanted to say that, well, I'm going to be a doctor because I'm doing my PhD, but it's not yet completed. So
You are Dr. Funke.
for
You are
for
doing
now,
as much as all doctors do.
I still prefer to use the Mrs. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mrs. Funke. I
Thank
have
you
you in
very
my
much.
phone as Dr. Funke, so that's how it's going to stay.
Amen.
Anyway. Mhm. So we have here also Dr. El Pate. He's the head of the regulatory agency. Tell me if I'm wrong, from Bauchi, Bauchi State. Dr. Pate, can we unmute you now? Oh, there you go. And have you come in? What does um, your WASH law say is the role of the regulatory agency?
Good morning. Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, good morning. We are hearing you clearly.
Okay. So my name is Dr. Samaila Jibril El Fatah from Bauchi. Regulatory unit was established in 2018 under the Ministry of Water Resources. And then, unfortunate situation, the unit is not being backed by law. The water law under the Ministry of Water Resources, the Bauchi water law is not being backed by the regulatory unit. So we are just there in the Ministry of Water Resources as a unit, like just a unit in the Ministry of Water Resources. So that's that's our status at of present now.
Status, what are you allowed or what are you mandated to do in this sector?
Actually, ideally, it was establishing, the regulatory was establishing during World Bank third water sector reforms in 2018. That is the essence for the establishing for the regulatory unit. And it's only to regulate the urban water sector alone.
Oh.
Only urban water sector alone. And after now, we have not carried out any functions. There is no, like we can say that in Bauchi generally, like there is no any regulatory activities because we are not being backed by no one, and then we are not getting any assistance or any support from the government since when at the same time, even now I can even say that we don't have even an office. So generally, like in Bauchi, there is no regulations.
Wow. Okay. So we also have Pastor Jaja. Thank you, El Pate, Dr. El Pate. We have Pastor Jaja from Rivers. Over to you, Pastor Jaja. We're answering the same questions.
Good morning, Ma, and good morning, all.
Good morning, sir. You're welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the privilege to share. Talking about the Regulatory Commission, the Rivers State Water Service Regulatory Commission in Rivers State. It was established by law number 7 of 2012, but it actually came to being in 2004 with 2014, sorry, with the appointment of the first Director General. Before then, the water sector went through a whole lot of reforms, 2012 to 2011, when the policy came forth, giving the water sector a direction, and thereafter the law 2012, law number 7 of 2012, establishing this bundle the the water sector into various units. Where we had the corporation, Potokoro Waters Corporation, we had Restore, Ruwasa Permit. Maybe later on we'll be able to establish say exactly what these other agencies are, and the Ministry of Water Resources, and the Regulatory Commission. This was saddled with the responsibility and the mandate to regulate the water sector and as much as possible to promote efficiency within the water sector, making sure that there was maximum access to potable water within the states. All right. This afforded the regulatory agency to be able to carry out some of the functions. That was quite before I came. Before I was called on to board this year, March, precisely, the Regulatory Commission had carried out a number of these regulatory function, basically to enhance the various water providers and industries to see the need for collaboration and best practices in the sector. So a number of activities have been carried out in trying to see that the water providers within the state are properly either licensed or given their permits. Also making sure that the citizenry in the state are not negatively impacted by the activities of these providers, particularly this indiscriminate drilling of boreholes and the pollution that we have. We might not have been able to do it more efficiently, but at least created the awareness that this kind of habits or activities may be detrimental to the well-being of the people. So in a nutshell, yes, there is a form of regulatory activities going on, but it needs much more than that. It needs the attention of government to take it to the next level. Yes, we are established by law, but there's more to it than what the laws have stipulated for the agency. I think probably I'll stop at this moment. Thank you.
Okay, so I will say thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for your contribution. And right now we have Engineer Salade. Engineer Salade is the head of the regulatory agency for APP.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, sir. You're welcome.
Good morning, the whole house. I'm happy to be part of this team this morning. And I want to appreciate Madam for organizing this academia for the water sector. Yes, quickly, Ekiti State Water and Sanitation Regulatory Agency came on board just a little less than a year ago. 2021. Before now, Ekiti State have a law 2013, Water and Sanitation Law 2013. That law actually gave the establishment of, gave power to the establishment of Ekiti State Water and Sanitation Regulatory Agency. But that was not implemented on the 2018. On the 2018, the government, because of the intervention that we had, in the sector in Ekiti State, we have the intervention of the World Bank under Third National Bank, that was running, and the European Union supported water and sanitation sector reform program. Phase 3 was also going on in Ekiti State, and the government then now find it necessary to have a regulatory agency established. But because of the paucity of fund, the government now said, okay, if you can't have a full-blown agency, we can start with a regulatory unit. And that is why we came up with a regulatory unit under the Ministry of Infrastructure and Public Utilities, the ministry in charge of the coordination of the water sector in Ekiti State. So we started as a unit in 2018. By His grace, in 2020, we were, because of the recommendation of the reform and the 2 reform program that was going on in Ekiti State, we were upgraded. Yes. We were upgraded to a full-blown agency, and I was made the head of that regulatory agency. So our roles and responsibility is actually captured in the 2013 law, which was actually reviewed in 2021. So in 2021, we have a clear roles and responsibility for the agency, because we now have in the sector a consolidated law that have all the laws of the agencies involved in the water sector and the service providers in the water sector. So we call it Ekiti State Water and Sanitation and Hygiene Law 2021. So that is the law that is existing in the state and gave power to the regulatory agency to perform majorly the roles of exercising regulatory and supervising oversight on public utilities by ways of regulation, rules, guidance, and all that. And there are clearly utilities that be listed in that law that we should work with to regulate. Among those one are the service provider that are in charge of urban water and sewage services, formerly Ekiti State Water Corporation, but is now licensed, now registered with Corporate Affairs Commission as Ekiti Water and Sewage Company Limited. Okay, so, and also there are also other reforms in the program. So we have started. So in a nutshell, what I want to say is that our roles and responsibility have been summarized under 3 major items. One is that we want to ensure that water, sanitation, and hygiene functions are carried out properly by the agency of government, one. Then to ensure that the service provider are able to handle reasonable revenue, that is return on their capital investments, and also to balance between, to balance the interests of the customers in terms of the price, the quality, and the reliability of the service they are being getting. So in a nutshell, that are the 3 areas where we have our roles and responsibilities captured. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, I don't know, I know yesterday, over the years, I have been researching to see how many more states have regulatory agencies. And I think that we have 3 more, but I'm not sure which ones there are. So if you are here and you are heading a regulatory agency, can you put up your hand to speak, please? Some of them are, you know, like kind of like the Bauchi one, some of it is still very informal structure. So, but that's okay. If you are performing the role of a regulator, let me see your hand up. Okay. Well, I want to want to sort of like ask us, as you can see from the discussions that we've had, I expected to hear some bullet points of this is what we are supposed to be doing, this is what we've been mandated to do, and all of that, but that's not what we have. So we're going to sort of go on to the more, I'm trying to find who's this one. Yeah.
I was
So I was going to say that what we're going to do is to sort of look at what the key responsibilities of the regulatory agency are. And so that we will be better educated about what it is that we should be doing, because much of the law is not too explicit for some places. So we can sort of put all our voices in the room to be able to come up with some central responsibilities that we should be, or some common responsibilities that we should be chasing if we are regulatory agencies also, so that those from the water sector that are here can also join in the discussion. We have two hands up. We have, Mrs. Funke, you're up. Can you unmute yourself and speak, please?
She can speak. She's unmuted already.
I can speak. I'm
Okay.
I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Idoko. And I think that you have asked a very pertinent question, or put it forward to us, that what really are the roles of the regulator? And I want to take that back to a basic understanding that we should all have about these roles and responsibilities. And the first thing you want to say is, what is our understanding of who a regulator is, or who the regulatory agency is? And best international practice has told us that it is that public authority responsible for applying and enforcing standards, criteria, rules, or requirements which have been politically, legally, or contractually adopted, exercising autonomous authority over service provision in a supervisory capacity. If we understand the interpretation of that, then it means that from the side of government, that understanding must be very, very clear. And it also should go further to make us understand that we all have distinctive roles. Government itself, regulatory authority, the service providers or utilities who supply service, whether public or private, and the users that are the final beneficiaries of drinking water supply, sanitation, and wastewater management. Moving away from that, before it dovetails into the roles, a clear understanding of what our focus should be and should be made clear to all stakeholders is basically about consumer protection, the provider's efficiency, and also sector development. If we hinge it on that tripod, then you begin to ask yourself, as a regulatory agency, how do you protect the consumer from undue monopoly or abuse of monopoly? You are talking about the ability of the regulator to ensure that there's access for all, minimum service levels maintained, there's no discrimination, no excessive tariffs, and those all come under the oversight function. If you look at providers' efficiency, what are we asking our suppliers to do? To respect standards and have optimized investments. It is expected that, there must also be provision for cost recovery and financial viability. So, and all this enables efficiency. And when you look at the sector development, how does it concern the regulator? To curb unjustified price transfer, to ensure that servicing the poor is provided for, promote investment, promote competition. When you look at all these issues that I have raised under those three pillars of consumer protection, of providers efficiency and sector development, you find out that it all speaks to the objective of having a regulatory agency in any state. And that is to ensure the long-term interest of consumers and financial viability of investors. So if we all have that basic understanding between the service provider and the user is also protected, at the end of the day, we're all going to work towards, okay, let me say achieving the SDG goal as it were for now, but basically ensuring that there's efficiency in the sector and that those services are safely managed. Having understood all of that, how then do we achieve that as regulators? And that's what takes us to our roles. First of all, what type of regulation are we doing? Because regulation is not a one cap fits all. There are different issues in the states that we need to understand. How does this play out? How does the institutional arrangement work in every state? I've heard some states say they are just units. I've heard some say they are just, they are full agencies. So when you put all of this together with each other, the role of the regulator is very clear. And the regulator serves as a balance between both sides. And what are some of the role of the regulators? We need to license the service providers because it's not a banana republic. And all activities relating to provision of water. And for me, I would love to see regulation take its rightful place, in the scheme of things in a country such as ours. Because we still have the vulnerable. We have private service providers. We have cases on our hands where a private service provider will just wake up and say, from this month, my amount is 3,000 naira per cubic meter. We have quite a big economy, a big water economy, in even the how do we call them now? Non-formal sector in Lagos State, the Meruwas, for example. And so many, you want to look at the number of households, the amount of water that they need, and how many, and all of that is computed. And it's verifiable. There have been so much done on that. And it shows that the amount of money in that sector alone is almost in trillion. So imagine the quantum of people that are already out of the net of access to water from public water supply. How do we improve these services? So does it mean everybody will just come in and start selling water? There's need for us as regulators to understand as part of our role that guidelines need to be developed with the understanding of the stakeholders. You're smiling. There's need to enforce all these standards when we do them. Those are some of the very critical roles. We're not in competition with the service provider. It's meant to be a relationship that puts water in your tap and my tap. There's the issue of water quality surveillance. You cannot be a judge in your own case. We cannot take on the surface of it what you tell us. So the regulator has an oversight function, and it should be a kind of understanding. Even when you go to cost recovery, you do your tariff, but the regulator must sign off. It must be approved. And the stakeholders must also be carried along so that the willingness to pay would be achieved from the outset. There's need to disseminate information to consumers on matters relating to water and sanitation services. The regulator has a huge job in terms of all other activities related to regulation to fulfill intent and purpose. There's also the issue, there's also the issue of efficiency and affordability. The affordability of prices, together with a level of cost recovery, it must meet the economic and financial sustainability of what we are trying to provide. There's the issue of monitoring compliance. Do you have the right quality? Do you have the right pressure? Are certain areas that have been captured, are they serviced? You must comply as a service provider. The regulator is not taking over your job. Your maintenance, operation and maintenance activities, somebody must be there to validate what you are telling us. There must be a reporting system. If you go to service provision, which is also one of the roles and responsibilities of the regulatory authority, it is also very key that we are able to oversee and promote the provision It's also very important because the consumer is the ultimate beneficiary. There's the consumer complaints mechanism. If you go to the water services and you're not getting answer, you can come to the regulatory commission. We escalate it back to the service provider. And if no remedial action is taken, they can be sanctioned to the point that we have some states, we have some countries.
Okay, someone's mic is on again. Sorry, I gotta track that person down.
Where the licenses can be withdrawn, we still have the issue of balance. Balance is so very critical because that balance needs to be established in order to ensure that the consumer's rights are protected. Water is a human right, don't let's forget. And they have a right to submit complaints and for the complaints to be addressed. The service providers can have their internal mechanism, but in a situation where there is no agreement or those issues are not addressed, they should be able to seek redress. I know that the Water Sector Law 2004 for Lagos State used to have provision for a water court. So when you look at it, regulation would also help us promote competitiveness. It's part of our role. Contribute to fair and open competition between service providers. There's so many innovative solutions that we can bring to the table. The last conference that we had in Lagos was an attempt to invite, private sector participation to ensure that we can expand, access to water in the state. There's the issue of public education. We can go on. And don't forget, regulation promotes accountability and transparency. And most of our funders are looking for that gap. They're looking for that accountability and transparency to be able to at least come in and support us more. And I remember when maybe it was Ekiti that was speaking, that they had 2 programs running, and those programs gave birth to the establishment of a regulatory commission or agency as it may be, because they understand the fact that there should be like a kind of umpire. So why would the umpire not be able to perform? We're not in competition. If the service providers are having issues, we will be the first to know, either through our reports or inspections, and we can see. In inspection, you can tell them, okay, these are the things we'll be coming out to look for. And in 2 weeks' time, we'll be back. It could be once a year, it could be twice a year. But at least you're able to address those issues. And the eventual situation that you want on your hand is improved service delivery. So I'm looking at a situation that we come to understand regulation as a key component or as an integral part in delivering effective and efficient service delivery. There's so many types of regulation. Which one do we want to embrace? Which model do we want to embrace? It's not a one cap fits all. The states are not the same. I'd also said that. So in trying to achieve our role, or in trying to achieve some of these roles that we have spoken to, it is important that the regulator is independent. It is also important that we understand that all of this that we have said about the role of the regulator is underpinned by ethics, good governance, and stakeholder engagement. And that's when we can deliver reliable water regulation, both to the public and private. Everybody needs water. So it's not it's not a case of competition. It's also another opportunity to maintain public confidence in water management. Because if the consumer knows that there's a place to go to, or there's a place to seek redress, or that the service provider knows that if he doesn't meet certain parameters, he will be called out, I think that people will sit up and be able to deliver this service to people. Science has told us that all water-borne diseases are deadly. So at what point do we know that, we're getting into that trap or the other if nobody is there to provide oversight function? The regulator is not there to sit with you in the office every day. It is not there to tell you what to do. It is only there to ensure and monitor that, what you are doing is in line with what the law and the policy has said about, about the sector. There's no single best practice, but instead we must find best fit and let our water service providers understand that it is only good for them. It's like, it doesn't, okay, I wanted to make an example. It's like saying an NCC. An NCC, the Communications Commission, is a regulatory body. The CBN is a regulatory body.
Yes.
SEC is a regulatory body. NAFDAC is a regulatory body. So what makes regulatory bodies in states an exception? What makes it difficult for us to be able to, ensure monitoring or compliance, carry out our activities? I think we would need to do more stakeholder engagement with both the service providers and maybe the user representatives and also government
And the public,
representatives.
yes.
Regulation is not meant to be at the back burner. In Lagos, we have the LASMA. There's a Ministry of Transportation, but LASMA is a regulatory body. Those doing the permit authority are regulatory bodies. The building controls are regulatory bodies. So imagine if we don't activate all of this, how would Lagos look like with over 25 million people? And if we take the criticality of water and how access to it and affordability matters, then I think we should do more in encouraging regulation in all the states. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, future Dr. Funke.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyway,
Okay.
thank you so much. We have some hands up, but before we go to the hands that are up, Dr. Henry, Engineer Henry, can you hear me? Engineer Henry Gama is from Delta State, and we would like to have your voice in the room. Engineer Henry, if you can hear me, could you tell us about what's happening in Delta? Engineer Henry, can you hear us? Okay. All right. When he comes in, we'll ask him again. So for now, Dr. Bolu, do you want to come in and, put your hands down and unmute yourself?
Okay. Thank you very much. I really, I enjoyed Mrs. Adepoju's submission. It shows that she has a very good understanding of the functions and roles of her agency. I personally, I have worked in the public sector in the water provision aspect of the provision of public water. I am now in the private sector. And so I've seen both sides. What I want to say is I want to encourage Mrs. Adepoju's agency to do more on public enlightenment. Because when you enlighten the public more, you become a more proactive agency. People will see you more as a proactive agency, encouraging people to conform rather than an agency that comes to wield the big stick. Now, the area that I would like to encourage her to be more active in is in the area of these estates. The estates that are emerging in Lagos State, they always boast of pipe-borne water, providing water, 24/7 water. It is a good thing. A good thing because the water, I think there's a lot of background. Because it's a good thing because municipal water is not available to most Lagosians. Now, I believe that LASWACO should engage these estates more, and these contractors that build these estates, you should engage them right from the beginning before they start building. I don't know if you can have an arrangement like what LASWAMO has. From my understanding of how LASWAMO operates, when a major building like a hotel, a building that I think is above 5 stories or so, is about to be constructed, the planning agency has to send the plan for the sewage treatment plant to LASWAMO for their approval. I would like to see the same thing happen to the water treatment plant. Let the planning approval agency, let them send the plan for the water treatment plant to your agency so that you can make sure that they are constructing the water treatment plant the way it should be constructed. Because from my own, from my experience, most of these estates, they just put together some scraps of metal and say that they have provided a water treatment plant, and within 6 months, 1 year, the whole system collapses, and then they will start looking for who to now help them correct it. And when you look at it, you wonder what were they thinking from the beginning, from inception? Why did they not consult the right people to construct this water treatment plant? And I know that it is part of your mandate to make sure that the right materials are used to construct these plants. Apart from that, the right chemicals are used, the right tests are done, and the quality of the water is right ab initio, and the quality is communicated to the state regulatory agency and to the people living in the estate. So this is just what I feel LASWACO should concentrate on. And also, I realize that from what other state water agencies on this platform have been talking about, they've been talking about more about municipal water production. I know that the Lagos State Agency also regulates the packaged water industry. I feel that other state agencies also should borrow a leaf in that direction. Apart from dealing with pipe-borne water, they should also look at packaged water, because a lot of people don't even drink from the tap. Even if we provide water 24/7 in Lagos State, a lot of people will not drink from the water. Well, let me not say a lot of people. Probably the elites will not drink from the water, from the tap. They will still buy bottled water. Even in Europe, in America, a lot of people still buy packaged water. They feel that it's safer, and they can also, at least read the label and know what they're consuming. So, well, that's my submission so far. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bola. I think
would you like me to answer those questions, or you want to take them after the others?
Well,
maybe I should just quickly take a minute and speak to them.
Let's hear from,
because it's easy to forget. Okay, thank you very much, my permanent secretary. It's good to have you here.
Yeah.
Let me address the key issues you have spoken to. On the issue of public enlightenment, be rest assured that it can only get better from this point onwards. We have a lot written already on media and advocacy, and we hope that we can be rolling them out as eager as we want them to be, but that is in the pipeline already. And part of our public enlightenment is also the LEWAC platform, which has brought a lot of people, you know, to understanding that there's an agency that is dealing with the issues of water regulation. On the estates, you have raised a very valid point. Let me start by speaking to the solution that we have that we're working on. The first thing is that we have met with the Ministry of Physical Planning. I met with the PAMSEC, and we explained the need for us to be co-opted into the approval regime, especially as it concerns the water safety plan. And she's well disposed to it, and work is going on that. And currently, the Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget does not give a sign off to public agencies who want to drill boreholes without getting a sign off from the Water Regulatory Commission. And that has been very effective, because I recall at one time, we went on inspection in one of the public health hospitals, and we found a dead bird inside their borehole. So we had to write. We had one that had about 5 boreholes not decommissioned. So because the law gives us the power to regulate all activities impacting on groundwater, we had to quickly raise that. And the Ministry of Economic Planning has been very supportive in requesting for the sign-off of the commission before any further action. And we have had cause to recommend the inclusion of water treatment plants in those boreholes, and to ensure that they get to the level where they have at least clean water, not stopping at the sensitive layers that's very prone to contamination. I'm also happy to say that we've had issues with some of the estates on various issues that border on regulatory aspect, from water quality to pricing to indiscriminate increase of, you know, rates and all of that, to just mention. And we're dealing with those 2 cases now as we speak. And we have also engaged the estates, let me use that word. And we decided to kind of do it by I don't know if I should use the word zones or by areas. We're taking the eastern part of Lagos, which is the Lekki corridor, and where they don't have access to municipal water. And then we also have huge number of estates in that regard. We're working on the guidelines for private water service provision, under which they fall. So we'll be meeting them, we'll be meeting the facility managers. All those meetings have already been scheduled, so that at the end of the day, we're all working together, and they're understanding that this is for their benefit. And like you rightly said, we must begin to take action. We don't want you to put 80 units of duplexes down, and they're only served by one borehole that will give them water intermittently, you know, or then they have to recourse to buying water, which of course they also have no control over in terms of quality. And you also mentioned the issue of packaged water. Yes, there's a lot of economy in that space too. And the Lagos State Environmental Management Protection Law states clearly that we should regulate all activities of bottled water and packaged water service providers. And I recall that last year, I had to shut down about 30 facilities for unwholesome production and practices. So as much as people are, as long as people are buying this water also to drink, the quality that is being given to the people is also of paramount interest, you know, to the commission. So by and large, most of the issues that you have raised have also been addressed, and we hope that they will come out full cycle in no time. And the issue of raw material, of the right material, is also critical, because I know that in UK, they have a regulatory body that sees to that. So as long as you're going to store water into it, it's also part of our problem to look into. And all of this we're putting together, it's overwhelming, but it's achievable. Thank you very much.
Yep, excuse me, please, before you go, another thing that I discovered during my work in the, especially with the estates, is the chemicals, indiscriminate use of chemicals. They use chemicals, they don't measure the chemicals, they don't test chemicals. So education is very, very important.
You will begin to see, Ma, from August. You'll begin to see. I will invite you to the meeting with them.
All
Because
right.
they were present at the LIWAC. The leadership of the estates was present at the LIWAC.
Yes, I saw him. Yeah, I was there.
Oh yes. So we're going to bring everybody together and make sure that we get things right and put the safety of the consumer at the center of it all.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you,
You're most
Funke.
welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Bola. Thank you. That was a good discussion. Let me just put a quick voice of the organizational builder in the room. We know what well, hopefully by our water law, we know what our mandates are. We also know what, well, we should know what is considered best practice in WASH regulation. And then we take this key area, we distill all of this down to some maybe 5 to 10 key areas that we should focus on. And we know what our state conditions are. So we domesticate these key areas that we should be focusing on regulation. Then we have to develop programs and work processes specifically for each one of these areas. And then first, then we train our people to be able to do this work. Why this is important is because oftentimes the regulator is always seen as the police. So you have to be on top of what you have been called to do before you step before the organizations or individuals that you are going to be regulating. That's one area. The second area that I wanted to also kind of call our attention to is, a key, before you can regulate anything, you have to have clearly set standards. So a key function of the regulatory agency is to set standards, whether it's quality, whether it's quality standards, process
Corporate
standards,
governance.
Standards, all those things have to be set and clearly documented. Then once you have done that, the first engagement with the organizations or individuals that you are targeting is to educate them about these standards. When we say that the water quality has to be this, what does that mean? What does 1 unit of whatever the quality is? What does it mean? How can you get to it? So it's when you have set the standards, educated the target of your regulation, that you can now monitor to see whether they are adhering to it or not. And if they suppose that you have done all of this and they're still not adhering to it, then this is where the policing comes in. You have gone in, I have told you what the standards are. I have shown you how to arrive at these standards. You signed in your service provider contract that you can meet this, and now you are not meeting it. You first of all go in to see whether this is a can't do situation or won't do situation you're dealing with. If it is a won't do situation, meaning you go in, their system seems like they can do it, everything, they have the people, they have all of that they can do it, but they're still not doing, that's a won't do situation. That is the police that in the regulator that must come out. Now the sanctions can come in stop production can come in, and whatever, withdraw your agreement can come in, all of that. But if it is a can't do situation, then what you have to do is put in place a corrective action plan. You sit with the management or whoever is in charge of that facility, and you say, you gotta do this, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. What is it that is keeping you that you can't do it? Because what you want to do is to help the service provider to continue to provide service at the quality that is needed. So I think because almost all the, Lagos is the most advanced, but all the regulatory agencies in the water sector are still at the starting point. So there needs to be a lot of attention put on setting the standards, setting operational standards, setting the actual service standards, setting the quality standards of the water supply before we even go to sanitation. Let's not even go to sanitation yet. If we can get the water thing down, things will fall in place very quickly. So my advice to all our regulators in the room is to go and start busying yourself with clearly defined standards for water quality, for water production quality, for water supply quality. Look at your tariffs and to see that the tariffs that you are asking, the public can bear it, the service provider can provide the services at whatever by studying their costs. Don't rely on the service provider to tell you this is their cost. You study what their cost of production is and look at the entire operational costs and see whether the tariffs that you have set is such that they can still provide the services at the standards that you have set. And they can still, of course, they're businesses, so they have to make money. And you also have to sort of watch very closely. I think, Funke spoke about that. You have to watch very closely that they don't get up and just charge whatever they like. That you also have, you have different areas. So in the US, different areas pay different tariffs for water. So that your tariff structure is such that you have taken account into the different areas where the service providers are located. In Nigeria, we desperately need the private sector to become our service providers, but we can't just leave the door wide open for whatever they want to do. Because I think, like Dr. Bola said, there's the danger, there's real health danger from feeding people chemicals, because they have not, met the standards that are necessary for how much chemicals should go into water production. But even that, the standards have to be set and communicated. And if there is training that is needed, that has to happen. What for the regulatory agency, you don't have a bottomless pit of money. So other than, I think that the regulatory agency, the responsibility of the regulatory agency is to set the standards, communicate the standards, and provide some sensitization on what the standards mean. But in terms of hardcore training to the service provider to be able to adhere to the standards, the service provider should pay for that one. They should be able to cover that cost, because, and this is critical, because in Nigeria, we tend to put everything on the government. The government should this, the government should that. And so we need to make sure that, maybe that's part of setting the criteria for evaluating who can become a service provider. That's the other thing that you have to put down, a clearly stated criteria. You have to be this, you have to that, you have to that. So part of that criteria has to be that they are able to cover the costs, this kind of startup costs. If you're going to be this, we have to train you in this, train you in that, train you in that, and you're going to pay for it. You know.
Can I say something? In agreement in total agreement with what you have just said, right? In the past, an idea was mooted for a water academy where you will train plumbers and water treatment professionals in accordance with standards. Yes, Mrs. Adepoju has just informed us that we do have some guidelines and standards in Lagos State, which is absolutely correct. But let us communicate it to our professionals via, just as Dr. Joko has said, by setting up an institution like a water academy, as has been mooted in the past. We need a water academy for this. And also, I just want to make a point to what you said. You said that, okay, we should talk about potable water now and just leave wastewater aside for some time. I think we should talk about both of them at the same time, because 80% of water, of potable water or water that is used in a household goes to waste. And this wastewater impacts water treatment that would eventually be consumed in every household. So we need to consider both. There was an issue some years ago. The World Bank insisted that the Lagos Water Corporation should also handle wastewater. But along the line, there was an issue, and I think it had to do with management, and it was separated again as an office. But ideally, potable water and wastewater management should go hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a note from Samuel Brown to everyone. It says the National Water Resource Institute, this is the one in Kaduna, is the Water Academy for Nigeria. I don't know if this is true or not, but that's what he said. Okay. So I'm going to ask that, Mark, you've had your hand up for a while. Can we hear from you, please, Engineer Mark?
Thank you so much, Madam Vicky, and thank you for this particular topic and all the beautiful speakers that have spoken. I think after this, you need to send a certificate of participation to us because it's a full course on regulation. Another dimension which has political economy issues. Because in about 3 states, we have been principally involved in supporting, setting up regulatory framework. I discovered that the first question that is often asked is, what are we going to be regulating? I mean, except Lagos, where there's so many players, and possibly Kaduna, where the water utility is a little bit is up and doing to a certain extent. Most utilities, most service providers in Nigeria, especially the urban service providers, are either operating grossly under capacity at 5% installed capacity, not covering up to 2 or 3% all of their service area, providing epileptic supply, some of them 2 times a week, 3 hours a day, and all that. And then some of them are not even producing, and the infrastructures are there, and they have the mandate to do so. So they keep asking the question, what are we regulating? We have these SOPs, we have this manual, but these guys are not producing. And so I want us to address how these existing regulators, how we can give them, how they can flex their muscles against water utilities. I know Madam Funka is doing excellently well in Lagos. Lagos is my home. but I'm not sure she has that muscle to really slam a service level agreement on Lagos Water Corporation and demand that Lagos Water Corporation fulfill its mandate. Otherwise, she takes some service delivery area from Water Corporation and unbundle it and give it to private sector operators. She needs to have that power, because that is where she can really do the catalyst role of a regulator for development of the sector. Otherwise, the utilities all over the country would underperform. They would protect their service delivery area from any other person coming in. The regulator is hamstringed. He can't chase the real big boys. He'll be running after the small, small children all over the place. And these guys are not delivering, you know? So I think this is beyond the regulators, because that's why I said it's a political economy issue. I sympathize with our regulators, because some of the time, the people in these institutions are also as strong as them at the political level. So I think as a sector, we need to bring this to the table to the political authorities, that the regulator should be able to also flex his muscle against this publicly owned service provider.
Public utility.
Everybody, it is the interest of the sector. You know, so they need to be able to put their eyes into their performance improvement program internally, look at the quality of service, and more importantly, look at the service coverage, because these guys are seriously underperforming, and somebody must ask them, you know, what they are doing. Then lastly, when you look at the performance-based contracts, some are facilitated about 2 between like the Water Corporation and the government. There are obligations on both sides. The regulator should have the power to demand performance from both parties, including government. The regulator should be able to ask the government through the ministry if it is committing, you know, enough resources for the Water Corporation to deliver the mandates. So I think these are the things that we should be able to come together as a sector, so that we can give these regulators the real teeth to help this sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Engineer Henry to come in a little bit. He was struggling with his mic before. So, Engineer Henry, can you unmute yourself and come in?
If you permit me, Ma, let me quickly give. Did you say Mr. Adeyemi or Engineer Adeyemi?
Yes.
Because he mentioned Lagos.
Adeyemi.
Okay, Engineer Adeyemi, sir. Good afternoon.
Mr. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to speak about the Water Corporation. That even though we might not be able to discuss it at this forum, something more positive is happening, and I'm sure at the end of it all, which is already on the table, we should have an improved and probably unbundled sector.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you. This is very good to hear.
Okay, Engineer Henry is unmuted.
Yes, okay, Engineer Henry, we're ready for you now. Engineer Henry is there a regulator?
I'm with you. I'm with you. Good day, everyone.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good day, everyone.
Good morning.
From the side of Delta State Water Sector Regulatory Commission, we are very green and trying to find our feet. Our staff need training and retraining so that to grasp the essence of regulation, because I see everybody as not just police, but as a principal advisor to anybody coming into the water sector. We should be able to issue guidelines. The Delta State Water Law mandates the Commission to produce document on technical guidelines for operation of water and sanitation in the state, financial guidelines, as well as a framework for public-private partnership. We are still trying to find our feet. With time, we'll be able to put these documents down, which will be the basis for beating everybody to standard. And like previous discussions, you know, people tend to ask you whether the government organization are not providing water. The work of the regulator in Delta State is first government to regulate state-owned organizations, then those who are in private sector participants, and those engaged in public and private partnership. That's it. So our work is broad, very broad. But we need a support to, as we are taking off, you know, to put us in sound footing, training of our staff, so that we'll be able to not just apply the stick, but also have plenty of carrots, so that nobody will be interested in getting the stick. That's our take.
Yes. Thank you so much, Henry. We have a note from Audu Paul here to everyone. He said, talking of setting of standards for production of potable water, I want to remind us that there is a national drinking water quality standard in place. The document belongs to the Federal Ministry of Water Resources to guide the service providers. It is inclusive of monitoring process and punitive measures to be taken against offenders. Did we know about this document at the Water Resources?
Can I speak to that, please? Can I speak to that?
Yes.
Yes. All water quality specialists in Nigeria know about this standard. In fact, I was a member of the technical committee that set up the standard. But we all know that conditions in every state in Nigeria, the conditions are different. Most especially conditions in Lagos State. Lagos State is a mega city, right? We can use the national standard as a baseline, but each state should be at liberty to domesticate the standard. And this is what has been done in Lagos State. Lagos State domesticated the national standard and put together its own Lagos State standard based on the peculiarities in Lagos State. So that we know.
Yes.
And also, you did mention that somebody said that there is a water academy in Kaduna. Yes, it's been in existence for years. But we also need to have some localized academies. In Lagos State, we absolutely need it, because as we have said, we should set up our own guidelines and our own standards based on the peculiarities in Lagos State, and train and certify our water professionals based on the local conditions in the state. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We had somebody else. Where is Mrs. Agbeo? Did you leave? She had her hand up and she wanted to speak.
Yes.
Miss Agbeo, if you're still here, there you are. Can you unmute yourself? Okay, she's struggling to unmute herself. Once she does that, then she can come in and speak. Okay. Is anyone from Plateau State here? Because I know that Plateau State had, they are thinking or have started the process.
Yes, Plateau State started during the EU Post 3 program. They had a unit in their ministry. I don't know. I spoke with the head of that unit. She said he has been appointed as the judge in the state now. So I don't know their status now.
So that kind of didn't work. Huh? Okay. All right, Miss
Please, can I speak?
Yes.
Yes.
Good afternoon, the convener and all other participants. I want to appreciate Mrs. Vicky for organizing this program. We've been coming from a very far distance, but we thank God for the strength and for our forging along on this program. My only contribution is that what Mr. Adeyemi said, that the regulator should flex muscle with the agency. I wouldn't want to see it from that angle. I'm a retired general manager, and I worked in the agency for over 30 years. So I went through rank and file in the agency. And you know, an agency that is transforming to become a private entity, and is not receiving the financial support that is expected from the big boss, I mean the government. And the regulator is now coming up to say, I want to flex muscle with them. It will not be in the interest of both parties. The best thing, we have a consultant now in Ekiti, who is the MD. What I went through is going through the same thing in a more difficult way, because the way as a civil servant I could maneuver, see some people, talk to some people to get my way. It's coming from the private end. It's not finding it so easy to do all those things. So the best thing is for the regulator to sit with the agency and study the agency. What are your challenges? They must talk to them together. So by the time they talk together, the regulator will be able to know, okay, this is the way I can come in. This is the way I can also talk to the government. Because of their position, they are in between the citizen and the agency. The best thing is to first understand, they put the consumers together, maybe their representatives. What are your challenges? In all these several meetings that we've been doing and some other ones that they can organize. From there, they'll be able to know what are the challenges of the consumers. Are they having regular supply? Is the quality okay? Is the water getting to you? So when they understand this, then they take up the agency. Let us know your challenges and problems. By the time you know their challenges, you know, okay, let's agree. We are going to present this, study it and confirm whatever they are put across to you. Confirm all those things and then know how to also come up and discuss with the government, telling government implication of what they are doing on the health sector. But if you just take up the agency that the government is supposed to give maybe a startup to start them up well, or give financial backing to start up as a private entity, and nothing is coming in from the government. The best is when you first understand the agency, then you know what to talk what to speak with the government on. But when you are fighting them, I tell you, you keep on changing heads of agencies and the management without getting any good result. But when you know the real problem, thank God the convener was a consultant at a time. And we went to the level that he met the top government functionaries, I mean representative of governor. And they sat with her and she told all that we needed to do and submitted books, almost 15 booklets for them to study and know how to transit with ease. And up to now, the financial support expected from them, the financial obligation of the government, they have failed. So when you take up the agency now, you are fighting the agency and you are flexing muscle. What will be the result? So my own idea is first study the challenges these people are going to, know how to come in. So when you both agree, okay, you write to the government this way, we will also fire the government this way, telling them implication of not having a regular monitoring system or not having regular supply of inputs to push the water or this or that. And if it's training, that they also notice that the training is also necessary. Add it to it. And it is for government. For you to get good results from all these agencies and performance, you also need to train in a particular, in their areas of needs. So it will not be, it shouldn't be something that will flex, but it is when you are giving the agency all this support and they are not coming up or they are failing. Now you can rise up as police and say, yes, you don't know anything. But agency that's under one project or the other, they have trained them, but the necessary tools and equipment to actually carry out their daily activity, they don't have. So flexing muscle with them, I don't see it as being necessary. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sabel. I just want to raise one issue. One of the key roles of the regulatory agency is to help the government enter into the performance-based contracts and to help manage that contract on behalf of the state government. So the idea that we should just leave our state water agencies the way they are now, well, their main, the 30, whatever of them, 35 or 34 of them, they are actually our main service providers now. And if it's not even Lagos, I don't even know any other state where that is an independent provider in the mix at this point. So to leave them the way they are now is not a good idea because it means nothing will change. I know we have all these numbers that we're telling everybody outside in terms of access to water, you know, but the reality is that's 60-something%. We know that that's not true because where we have pipes in the ground, they're not working. Our production facilities are not working. Just because you have pipes going to an area doesn't translate to access because there's no water going through the pipes towards those people and all of that. So in reality, when you look at our performance in the sector relating to water, is really abysmal. So someone has to put their foot on the ground that these agencies have to perform. But it's not to say that where they are now is where they, you know, that is ideal, but to help them get to where they need to be, the performance-based contract can be used to help them get to where they need to be. Because the performance-based contract will basically say, okay, you give me this. And then you say, well, in order for me to give you this, you have to give me that, and that, and that. So then the service provider now says, okay, the government give me this. So when the government gives you this and that, then you have to produce the results that you have contracted to produce. The situation where we have heads of state water agencies, they're there, and the average amount that the state water agencies are, the state governments are spending is like 500 million a year, and no one is getting anything. It's not a good place to be. We have to hold someone responsible for spending 500 million every year for a state water supply that no one is getting. And so maybe studying what the situation is and really putting the state water agencies under a performance-based contract that the regulatory agencies can now manage, you know, and monitor and evaluate and regulate whatever they're doing is critical for us to advance as a sector. So that's my point. Who else has their hands up?
Hello, ma.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you very much for that last submission. And for us in the States, we are not leaving the urban water to stay where they are, and that is why, for example, we've moved them from a public government-owned agency, partially, at least, to become a corporate entity. that will have the lines registered with Corporate Affairs Commission. And from us as a regulator, because we know where we are, and the government has actually invested a lot of money in the urban water, we try to say, okay, since you are at a point now, and so much of facility has been rehabilitated under the intervention, that we should need, there's a need for us to now start progressing. We are not saying that you should just move at a go to the satisfactory stage, but you can start from where you are to move up. And that is why we have shared from us as a regulator, we've shared our own draft performance contract with Ekiti State Water and Sewage Company for them to study it. We are on the talking time now, so that we will be able to track their activities. What is in the, some of the items in the performance contract is for them to give us the baseline, a baseline of where they are now, and to project where they are going in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, so that we'll be able to use that to track them. So we will not be leaving them. We are not going to be flexing muscle with them, but we want to put them on check so that they will be able to deliver service to the people. Yes, yes, ma'am. Like Dr.
Did I hear you say that part of the performance-based contract that you are drawing up is for them to produce the baseline data?
No. I say in the performance contract, we have identified with the agreement with the agency, with the corporation, the urban corporation, those where they are, their current status. For example, let me take, for example, if for example, they are on the coverage, the service coverage area is about 3%. We want them now to, in the performance contract, they will now give us projection on how to move to improve on that service coverage area in the next 2-3 years or something. So that we now use it to track them.
When the Water Corporation was incorporated as this new company now,
yes,
did the state government hand over assets to the corporation?
Yeah, the asset, because somebody has done, a consultant has been engaged to do the assets of Water Corporation. And the government and the management of the Water Corporation now, they are on the talking time to know some of the items that will belong to the new company, and the other one that will go to government owned, like Small Town Arua, that have been matched together. So that we will now know what are the facility and asset that will belong to the new company for us to now track them. They are working on that.
Okay. So I guess my last question then is, I know when I don't know, I think you know, Engineer Osalade, that we did the organization development.
Yes,
yes. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And we turned in, like, I think 19 different designs of everything end to end on how to run that corporation.
Yeah.
And okay. But a key part of that whole thing was that there is a 3-year transition period.
Yes.
And there was also some money that was based on what they are producing now, this baseline that you're talking about, and where they need to be in 3 years, that the government was supposed to come up with, and the revenue levels that they were supposed to reach in order to begin to become self-sustaining from the government. Yeah, do you guys have that?
Incidentally, I'm not a member of the transition committee. The transition committee has been inaugurated, and they are studying your document. And I'm very sure before they finally, this JKF2 finally leave the government, they will be able to come out with a recommendation for the same Water and Sewage Company in terms of some of the recommendations you made in your consultancy assignment to the state.
So the reason that I'm asking you these questions is this. You can't ask someone to perform a certain way if there's already documentation that says you have to do this, you have to do that, so that they can perform.
Yeah, you have to keep your own side of
You
the
understand?
agreement. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Dr. Bola,
Yes.
your hand is up.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Concerning the performance contract, that is perfect. But we forget that a corporation, a company, cannot run without the human resource, without the human beings. Now, the problem that I see or that developed in Lagos was the issue of the status of the workers there. You want them to perform as if they are working in a public enterprise, but they are still under the shackles of the civil service operations, civil service promotion, and some civil service rules and regulations. So the workforce could not perform optimally. That was a problem with Lagos Water Corporation, and I believe it's still a problem with them now. That's why they couldn't perform. I think we did have a performance contract, but you know, they couldn't perform because they were still under. For example, if you have a staff on a certain level, and for him to get to the next level, he should just wait for 3 years. The regular 3 years, there's nothing else to motivate him. He will just wait for 3 years and then he's promoted. He doesn't have to live up to any performance indicator or any regular performance level to get to the next level. So it's a problem. It's a problem with corporations because they're neither the private sector and they're neither totally it's still in the public sector. So that performance is always a problem. And also political interference. Political interference is a big problem, even when they have transited to the corporation level. There's still that political interference with promotion, with staff appointments, and also with supplies of chemicals and other contracts to be implemented within the organization. So it's a good thing to have a performance contract, but to actually implement that contract is always a problem. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Mark, you had your hand up before. Have you put it down?
Yeah, it's still up.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to do a follow-up.
And then I'm going to start calling people from the inside.
Yeah. Just to do a follow-up to this, because when I first had Monday morning mentality from you, Vicky, some years ago, it resonated with me. Because when we have a discourse like this, I always want us to live with an action plan. What do we do on Monday morning? Now, this is my own suggestion to the group and to our entire sector. We need regulators in the system. We need regulators in the system. And this regulator is not just regulating the service provider, is like regulating everybody. He's playing his role, even demanding the obligations of the government, whichever way he can do it. So for me, my suggestion is this. How do we put strategy together to get independent regulators that with the political will, backup political will, can have the power to demand performance from government power to demand performance from service providers. Even if it's just to bring out reports on a regular basis on agreements, service level agreements, obligations in performance contracts. So we need to ask the regulators here, what are your plans towards having a performance contract with the players in this industry? Where are your service level agreements with the service providers? Even the corporations that have different challenges, you may not set operating indicators for them at the initial stage. They might be just house cleaning, house clearing indicators, sort out these organizational issues. Implement Vicky's 18 organizational documents. I mean, those ones don't require much money, appoint the necessary. So I think the regulators should be empowered to follow this process, to make demands, to bring reports on a regular basis, so to either name or shame, or just to show everybody where they are in terms of their obligations and their responsibilities, including the government and its agent and all its agencies. If we can come up with that and take it to the highest level, then we can begin to bring sanity to the system, where we know that there's somebody who will ask questions. There's somebody who will project our performance from time to time. He may publish it, he may project it within the sector, but somebody is watching everybody. And then he's traveling, he's making sure that there's progress. For example, when you have a development partner project, there are objectives of that project. Some of the time, most of these projects don't even achieve those objectives. The regulator should also be able to stay there and say, these are the objectives of this particular project. Are we on track? Are we not on track? So we need regulators like that, and we should put that together to empower them to do so in the interest of the sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mark. I want to hear from another veteran that is in the room, Dr. Frank. Frank from Port Harcourt Water. Can we hear your voice, please? Can you hear us, Frank?
Hello.
There you are.
Yeah, good afternoon, Doctor. Good afternoon, everyone in the room. Sorry, I think I'm experiencing a little bit of network issues connecting and disconnecting, so I don't know if you can hear. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yes, we can hear you. Okay, we can hear you. Uh-oh, we lost him again.
We lost him again. He said he's experiencing a network challenge and he's going off and on. That's what he said.
Okay, so we will wait for him to come back in. Engineer Daramola, can we hear you, please? Okay, yes. Is he here? No.
No.
Okay.
I think he went out.
Okay, Frank, are you back in?
Yes, yes. Sorry,
Okay.
the network here is because it's been raining, so the weather is actually disturbing.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay. Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you for this opportunity. Like the invitation came in, and I had to equally send the invitation to the person in charge of the regulatory commission. Yeah, so I really don't know if he's in the room.
He spoke earlier.
He's in the room.
Okay, so probably
okay.
So probably he would have been the one to speak up from the regulatory commission's side. But at least, Madam, for the concerning the Port Harcourt Water Corporation here, at least over the years, we have finally started. And then, like the other doctor said, I think from the federal ministry or something, is actually that of the Regulatory Commission to actually take charge of all these regulations and all. But for Port Harcourt Water was not really gotten to that extent. So we're actually appealing, just like someone from Delta State spoke to, so they can come in and then see how we can have the needed support, to drive and then let the Regulatory Commission do what they ought to do. Because if you come down to Port Harcourt, it's not actually the way it's supposed to be. And most times, I think even the regulatory commissions, I think they are not even carried along. Madam, we've spoken sometimes, and the issue with Port Harcourt is particular. Honestly, so he would have been the one to speak better since he has taken over from the former person in charge. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Hillary, are you here? Hillary, are you here? No, he can't hear me. Unmute yourself so that you can make a contribution. Okay, he hasn't, okay, there he has. He hasn't yet unmuted, he has. Hillary, but do you have any contribution to make? Okay, we're not able to hear Hillary, so.
Good afternoon, ma.
Oh, there you are. Okay, you came in.
Hello, this is Daramola.
Yes, we know.
Good afternoon, Madam Idoko. You are doing pretty well for the sector. This topic is highly interesting, and there's so many things have been said, which I really agree in truth. You remember when you did the Ekiti project assessment, you met with the team, the management team, and you tried to assess what the situation was. That's your report. That report is what you are asking the regulator from Ekiti. What has become of that report? What have they done with it? It's an important thing when you have a document like that, that the stakeholders in the state should go down, and if they do not allow the person who actually brought out the report to implement it, they should try at least endeavor to read through and see about and make the best use of those reports. For instance, Ekiti Water Corporation, yes, went through some project reconstruction and so on, turnaround. But those turnaround machines will not function without some funding, which the state government must actually provide to make the ability to function up and then grow along the line. This is an issue that has been with the former corporation that is not corporatized, and this is the same thing that is ongoing, as I claimed by Engineer Mrs. Agbeyo. So the non-performance or regulating an institution which is underfunded is a very big issue in the country, and it's not an exception. So if they are going to, if the regulator is now going, is a unit in this, as it were, issue, not only regulating the utility, even the government performance. What is their duty? What are they fulfilling their own part, so that the corporation can grow from where they were, from the baseline to another. This is my take. I stand to be corrected.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. What I think that we want to look at from here on Okay, wait. We have not heard from Dr. Balogun. Again, can we hear from you again? Because we're now doing the closeout. Everybody that needs to speak, put up your hand up. Let's speak. So we'll start with Dr. Bola so that we can walk down the chains and then we can begin to close out. Remembering what Mark said, Engineer Mark said that we should specifically say that the regulators are still part of the sector and they should be given the power to regulate everybody, and we should be shooting for independent regulators rather than just government regulators.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm in total agreement with that. The more independent the regulator is, the better the sector will be. The regulator needs to be absolutely independent. In Lagos State, we need to overhaul the law and revert it back to where it was in 2004, when the regulator had more free hand to operate freely in the sector. The regulator performs a pivotal role in the sector, and it's an indispensable role, and it's absolutely necessary for proper management of the sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, Mark, you done your final word. Mrs. Funke, are you still here?
Thank you very much to everyone on this platform right now. And my parting shot will be that regulation basically is to cure technical or economic challenges in the water and sanitation sector. And therefore, it has become important for us to be able to strike a balance between the quality of the service, the interest of the consumers, and financial sustainability of the providers. This grammar sounds very nice, but we can't do anything if the policies and institutional arrangements are not put in place by law at the state levels. Policies first, law afterwards, to ensure that they address the issue and position the regulator appropriately. Fighting for the regulator to be independent or autonomous is actually, for me, an anomaly. It is what should be. It should be a given, so that you're not fighting for what ordinarily should be your responsibility. And when you look at the way government works, the word fighting for it can really be tough. And like I always say, if you make the referee report to the player, you can only have chaos. Yes. So the advocacy should now be for us to ensure that we drive home our point on the importance of the regulator, the independence and autonomy of the regulator, and every other thing will fall in place. Because at the end of the day, the enhanced outcomes that we're looking for is actually just for sustainable access. Thank you very much for this program.
On that note, Oga Debageri, I know you hear your voice today at all, but we are now at 1 o'clock and we promised to close at 1 o'clock. So so we are going to shut down now.
All right, let me say good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me. Actually, I've been listening, and the issue of regulation, one area that I feel we have not discussed much about is the issue of even empowering the regulator himself, because I realized that in some of the projects, like the project we just completed, the eWash, where I served, the regulator, yes, there's an agency that's created, but they have not been able to take off properly because they have not been trained on how to go about the regulation. And the issue of take-up fund is also an important issue. So when you talk about the independence, the first thing that comes to mind is the issue of money. How would they operate? How do they get funding in order to operate? So it's one of those things that I feel maybe if we have time, next time we will discuss more about it, because the funding and the tech of the regulator is very important. And he also needs to know exactly how to go about what. Like when we were talking about the water quality earlier, you have to, of course, set for each agency or every state, they have to develop their own water quality assurance plan. And in that plan, you'll be able to say what level of quality are you expecting? Because at the takeoff, you may not be considering all parameters and things like that. So, in short, I want to say that the regulator needs to be trained and be in good, on good footing to know how to regulate the sector. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. I think the final thing that I would like to add myself is we have, I think, 34 state water agencies. We have 36 states plus the FCT. The role of the regulator is pivotal for quality, for access, for service. And we don't even need to lecture on the importance of the wash sector to public health and our economic well-being, because we all know that. So how we push to, and someone did post about approaching the development agencies to focus some more on helping set up the regulatory agencies, equipping them, training them, so that they can take center stage in the reforms. Perhaps the low performance of the sector has something to do with the low levels of regulatory agencies in the sector. But this is a gaping hole that we have to deal with, as you heard from other than Lagos. All the remaining regulatory agencies are either there just by name or just getting started. And this is a critical need in the sector. So somehow we have to get to political will, get to the development partners to begin to focus on helping to set up the regulatory agencies. That is my parting shot. I see Mrs. Funke's hand up.
No, I've spoken earlier. No, ma'am, I've spoken earlier.
So on that note, let me thank everybody who stayed and who came in and who stayed. I know that we all struggle with our network, and and sometimes it goes in and out. So it always appears like people are coming and going. Thank you so much. We have a recording of the session. What we're going to do is edit it some and then post it on YouTube for those that were not able to attend. This is not going to be the last session on the regulatory agencies, because this is a real need. We will, I will reach out to you guys individually to see what it is that we can do next to help the regulatory sector. So on that note, thank you for participating in WASH Academia. We are going to be sending out the notice for the next session soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Hi, Shoto White. Finally, she brings her voice in. All right. All right. Thank you, Pastor Jaja.
Thank you. Good section.
Yes.
Thank you.
Steven, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes.
Don't forget our certificate of participation.
Oh, Mark has a million certificates. He keeps looking for more. Mhm. All right, thank you so much, everyone.